Let's have a look at the academic IELTS reading test and look at some of the question types and some of the strategies we use to answer these questions. So at the start of the test, I can see that I have this first reading passage and it's the Channel Tunnel. I'll just do a very quick skim to try and get the main idea. So we've got a little bit of information, England and France, a bit of history, 1802, going into the 80s and the construction of a tunnel that goes under the Channel Tunnel between England and France, talking about the drilling process, the digging process, and then around the completion, the amount of money that it took, and now a little bit of talking about the future and further engineering projects. So about 800-word article there, which is common for a reading passage in IELTS. IELTS Academic. And now I've got my task, and my task is actually a summary completion task. And the good thing about a summary completion task is this actually gives us a really great overview of the whole article as well. And the summary, they will follow the order. So the first question will be found at the top of the passage. The second question will be found at the next step, and then possibly in the third or fourth paragraphs as we go down through the summary. So we follow the article and answer each one. So we know that this must be at the top of the passage. During the modern era, many people have viewed the English Channel as a barrier to tourism, and okay, we have our first gap. And quickly glance back at the instructions, 1 to 2 words. So we know there must be 1 or 2 words from the passage that fill in there. I would say it's probably going to be a noun, because we got one noun, which is tourism, and another thing, which is a noun. So let's go back to the top of the passage and we have a look here. Separates, bit of introduction, regarded a nuisance for travel and commerce. Okay, so travel means tourism. It's a synonym for tourism, and we've got this connecting word here with commerce, and we know that commerce is a noun. So I would say that commerce is the first answer. And I can go in there and check barrier to tourism and commerce in Europe. Perfect. That's the one. And then I go through that same process to try and scan the information, English and French governments. Okay, so I'm going to go back and try and find that information and see how I can fill that gap. Also, of course, like I said before, with a summary completion, good to use the grammar. On a, that must be a noun. It must be a noun, and it's going to fit in there either 1 or 2 words. Okay, now the next task we have here is yes, no, not given. And for many students this causes some challenge, some anxiety, and people will say, oh, I just don't quite know how to do this. Well, it does take practice, but the concept is actually fairly straightforward, and once you get it, it's quite easy to do. So let's have a look at the first one in question 9. Politicians asked engineers for their opinion about the possibility of constructing a tunnel between England and France. So if it's yes, well, they did ask their opinion. If it's no, they didn't ask their opinion. And if it's not given, there's no information about the opinion at all. So politicians asked engineers for their opinion. Let's go back to the text and we go forward a little bit. Towards the end of the 19th century, a group of engineers took it upon themselves to begin digging a tunnel from the English side only. So did they ask permission? Did they ask if they could do it? Well, no, they didn't. They wanted to force the British government to accept the idea. So it's actually, that would be no. Politicians asked engineers for their opinion. Well, no, they didn't ask them. So the answer is no. There is information about constructing a tunnel between England and France and engineers and politicians. So the information is given, but it just happens to be no. Let's move forward and have a look at the next reading passage. So for questions 14 to 26, and what is the first type of question we have here? we have a matching features type of question. So there are 5 paragraphs, A and E, and now we need to try and see which feature, which idea matches each paragraph. So the belief that human activities will worsen the impact of El Nino. So what is El Nino? We haven't even skimmed the passage yet, but straight away I can get a bit of an idea that El Nino, human activities, Pacific Ocean winds blowing, scientific knowledge. So this is going to be about science, it's going to be about Pacific Ocean, and it's going to be about the wind and this phenomenon called El Nino. So once I've had a look at that, I can go back through here and I can again very, very quickly. We don't have time to read every single word. We're just trying to find the words that are really important for our understanding. And we can, as we've talked about before, you can actually make a little concept map or a little road map to show what these different ideas are. I would always also be underlining a lot of the key words if I'm doing the paper-based version of the test, underlining as much as I can just to try and get the main idea. Now, the question that we're trying to answer now is the belief that human activities will worsen the impact of El Nino. So I'm going through, let's have a look at if it says it in this final paragraph. There is much that remains unknown, is responsible. Some scientists today predict global warming from human pollution will heighten the effects of El Nino. So that is exactly what we're talking about. Human action will make it worse. So what's the paragraph? The paragraph is E. Human activities will worsen the impact. So 14 is E. And then we can continue for those other questions. The next one, 21 to 23, this is a matching information type of task. So we have some information here and we need to match it with the passage and find out what should be included. Now we've got A to G, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different bits of information, but only 3 are correct because we're putting it into question 1, question 21, question 22, and question 23. So 3 of these are correct and 4 of these are not correct. So if I have a look at this, then the question is, which 3 of the events listed below first made people aware of the existence of El Nino? So first made people aware. Ceasing of typical winds, higher than average precipitation, drought conditions. Let's just go back. So what first made people aware? Okay, so this is a bit more about just the general information about El Nino, but then we've got, okay, these are the people who are actually on the ground, the people who started noticing strange weather conditions. They realized some years where oceans were filled with colorful fish that had never been seen before, so new fish. At the same time, heavy rainfall soaks the land. So heavy rainfall, that's precipitation. Rainfall is a synonym for precipitation. So ceasing, I don't think it's that one, but I think higher than average precipitation, yes, that's true. And there might unfamiliar species, yes, so that new fish types. Remember we saw there's abundance of new fish. Well, that would be correct as well, and there must be another one in there as well. So there are some that are correct and some that are not correct. 24 to 26, what type of question do we have for this? Well, this is a sentence matching task. Obviously we've got the first half of the sentence and then we've got the other halves of the sentence. And again, you've got 3 and then you've got 6 options. So obviously not all are going to be used, and we have to write, again, read the instructions, write the appropriate letters A to F in the boxes on the answer sheet. So 24, Peruvian farmers and fishermen. Okay, we can notice that we've got verbs, verb, 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 all past tense verbs. Fishermen, scientists, Australia and Asia. Okay, so we've got subjects, and then we've got verbs that follow, so the grammar can give us a little bit of a clue there. Farmers and fishermen arrived in South America, moved their research, became aware of unusually heavy rainfall. Well, I'm quite sure that that's the answer, because we talked before about Peruvian people noticing the precipitation, which again means the higher rainfall. So 24 would be D. Yeah, and then we do it for those other ones as well. Moving forward into reading passage 3, what type of question do we have here? This is a matching headings. So we've got a group of different headings, and these headings relate to the article on passage 3. So we've got some headings, and it's about gold rushes. Okay, so we've got these paragraphs, and each paragraph has a letter associated with it. Again, if I'm starting this for real, I would underline some of the key words in each of the first sentences, which is my skimming. Gold rushes more than any other commodity. Gold is responsible for changing the world. Migration, okay. Countries considered to be part of the old world. Europe. So we've got old world and this idea of the new world. America and Australia, etc. And then 48. California, so I'm assuming that all this is about California and people coming to California, and it's a dramatic jump. Okay, a bit more about San Francisco, American government, and then some rumors, and then all of a sudden we're looking at Australia. We're looking at people moving to the next part of the gold rush, which is in Australia. We've got information about Melbourne. We got something about New Zealand and even the west coast of Australia there, Perth, and then the discovery of gold has restored confidence and helped people through terrible hardships. So very quickly I've been able to skim this article. I've got a pretty good idea. If I'm writing a map, I might be able to write just 1 or 2 words, and I would also always look to underline as much as I can. I need to read with my pen and try and underline. So going into, I'm going back into the questions which are part of the matching headings, and I would look at the first one, list of headings, sailing to the gold fields. Let's have a quick look at the instructions. From the list of headings below, choose the most suitable heading for each. Write the appropriate 1 to 10 in boxes 27 to 33. So 1 to 10, there's 10 of them. But I'm only going to use box 27 to 33, which means there's only 6 questions here, and I'm not going to use all of these. So I need to always be careful when I'm using the instructions to try and get the best information. So the first one, sailing to the goldfields, dramatic population, gold's influence on migration. So paragraph A. Alright, so 27, question 27 is related to paragraph A. So let's try and find paragraph A. Sorry, I'm going to go the other way. Paragraph A. It was motivating factor behind migration of millions of people. Long distance transport became more reliable. Migration. So lots about migration in paragraph A. So lots about migration in paragraph A. Gold's influence on global migration. So I would say that is a pretty good idea there. So in box 27 on my answer sheet, I would write 5. And notice that is the Roman alphabet for 5. And often IELTS uses the Roman alphabet. So it's worth becoming familiar with this before you actually do the test. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 27 is 5. Let's move forward now to the next question type, and we have some multiple choice. And obviously most people are familiar with how multiple choice works. It says choose the correct letter A, B, C or D. So we're only going to choose one letter, and again, the good thing about multiple choice is it follows the order of the passage. So we can do those quite easily. And then we move to 38 to 40, and we have another sentence completion task here. And similar to the summary completion, we've got our sentence and then we've got a big gap. And so we've got to try and find words. Now in these tasks, it's very important that you look at the instructions to see how many words. No more than 3 words for each answer. So I might have 1 word, I might have 2 words, or I might have 3 words that will go into that spot there. Make sure your grammar is correct. Make sure you don't use capital letters. When you're writing, it's probably going to be lowercase. And in this actual situation, I know the answer is rumors began spreading. So the California gold rush started when rumors began spreading that someone had discovered gold near San Francisco. Yes, the grammar feels right. It's 3 words, which works, and then that will be my answer. Of course, at the end of your test, you have your time where you need to transfer your answers. So you have an answer sheet, which this is a very basic one, but it's essentially the same. Each question you have a little gap, and you just need to carefully and neatly write your answers in there. So there you go. There's an overview of the different question types that you can expect to find on the IELTS reading test, and you've got a few strategies there about skimming, scanning, and doing detailed reading. The test itself is long. We got 3 long passages on academic IELTS, but with practice and understanding what you're asked to do, it should be achievable.